something's going on here. You know what? I got two of me in the studio, and I've got to figure a way to get one of you out of here because I'm getting. Let me see if I turn this. How about any better? Nope. How come I can't get rid of me? I got. I think I gotta come back and way. I'll be right back, guys. Bye bye. All right, guys. How about now? I'm back. I know you can hear me now. I apologize. I got into a lot of stuff there. Real quick, I said rest in peace to Orlando Cepeda, Chuck Howley, two great players in baseball and football. Marcus Stroman unhappy with his attitude on the field and showing up his teammates. Mets honor Grody and Mays with patches on their uniforms. Two great Mets. Well, two great players. Grody met Mays elsewhere, obviously. Yankees fading. Orioles rolling. Astros getting back. The Astros are back. All-star voting phase one is over. We can talk about that. We can talk about Bronny to the Lakers. We can talk about the Knicks all in for next year. Zach Edey, is he a surprise at number 9? Can he play? Schlossnagel to the you got to put the volume down here. I tried to track my personal page, make sure no comments go in there. What else? Football. Chuck Howley, we said, passed away. We were talking about the top 5 quarterbacks over on God, I apologize. We'll have to put a little note up when we share the show today. I apologize greatly, guys. I should have looked at the comments faster. I had turned anyway, whatever. It's user error is all I can tell you. Casey looking for a new stadium. NFL loses lawsuit on the NFL ticket. What else? Anything else you guys want to talk about? So there we go. Back to your good mornings. Good morning. Good morning, Dave Guyette. Good morning, Jeremy. Good to have you with us. I think Dave was going to say, I can't hear you. Can't hear you. I won't play all these can't hear you comments. Your lips. It's better this way anyway. Isn't it better when my lips are moving? Paul Spotted, good morning. Oh, God, no, it's not just any of you. Rick, if you want to fill us in on the rest of the top 5s, if you're monitoring both shows, I'd love to hear Jack and Mac's top 5 quarterbacks of all time. Mine, by the way, were Brady, Montana, in a close race. Manning, Elway, and Marino. And again, that was those last 3 guys. I could swap them out with a bunch of guys. Drew's right. Transition from one show to the other screwed things up. I didn't do it the way I normally do it. My own fault. User error. Jeremy, good to have you with us again. Jeremy B. Everybody's checking me both places. Thanks for texting me, Rick. I didn't get it. I apologize because I had the volume off on my phone. Reading my lips, something about vacuum cleaners and bring back Nike's Just Do It campaign. Good morning, Chris F. Grave, our Toronto correspondent. Oh, my God, that is awesome. Hello, Kenny. Good for you to have it. It's time for Keith's take on it. Which thing? This show probably goes better when you can't hear me. Jeremy, maybe we're getting into some chatter here. I was really happy with the Knicks, but after watching the draft unfold, I think the Pistons and the Tigers will need to be sold to new owners and a fire sale began. Both teams seem like they're being run by the ghost of William Clay Ford. Detroit, why do you bring Monty Williams in, give him all that money, then give him nothing to work with and fire him? He's a good coach. Yeah, we got to figure it out. Thanks, Danny. Thank you, guys, all of you, for hanging in there with me. It was a rough start this morning. Go Tigers. Take the Pistons with you on the way out. Whoa. I think A.J. Hinch, I talked about on the MLB update Friday. I think A.J. Hinch is in trouble. Paul couldn't hear me. Yeah, I know. That was my bad. I'm glad you couldn't hear the background music because it was playing 1,000 miles an hour. This is a funny tube. Oh, if only I was only talking about the flat Earth. Danny's got his obligatory stankies, and Keith won't have anything good to say about them. They stunk it up for a week, almost 2 weeks. And I got a bigger problem with Marcus Stroman showing up his teammate. And I'm not a big fan of Gleyber Torres, as you know. Are you still not hearing me? That's not true, is it? Okay, good. Thank God. I checked my mic. What happened was when I was in there twice, I tried to mute myself so it would get rid of the echo and not have to pop out, pop back in, but I never turned it back on. One of my mics, because I was there twice. So no, again, right now I got not a lot good to say. I warned you guys, all the Yankee fans, about the red flags. And listen, I'm not going to apologize because I'm not and I don't think you are either, Danny, by the way. I'm not a rose. I don't look at my teams through rose-colored glasses. Everything is, if something stinks and I'm worried, then I'm going to point it out. And I've told you there are issues with this team. And now they're popping it up. Rondon has stunk it up the last 2 times out. Stroman, who's pitched well, I said before the year, he's not a great fit for this clubhouse. I don't like the way he carries himself. And you saw it on the field the other night. Can't be like that. Yeah, we're getting there. Let me get to... No, shit, can't hear you. Now you're playing Seek. What am I doing? Now I'm playing hide and seek. I just left for a little bit. Excellent. We can hear me. We can hear me. Yeah, I'm going to be long anyway. What the hell's the difference? We got volume. All is right with the world again. Red Sox. Red Sox are up and down, man. They're most one of the most schizophrenic teams in baseball this year. CB Buckner has been an MLB umpire since 1998. I'm not sure where the context is there, but I'd love to know if there's something I need to know about CB Buckner this morning. Danny Fuller, he puts Montana first, Brady second, Star, Elway in fifth. Who's TK? Isn't that awful? Who is it? Who is TK? Oh, maybe the rest. I don't know what that refers to. Again, my picks when it came to the football on the Mac and Jack show were, to me, Brady and Montana are there's no doubters, and I can make an argument. You can make an argument for a lot of guys because there's a lot of different criteria. Is it only wins? Is it only with stats? You got to be a leader. I put Marino in there because he was one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He played on bad teams with no defense, teams with no defense. And again, that's debatable. The last 3 guys I took, I could have taken out for Otto Graham. I could have taken out for Unitas. I could have taken out for Tarkenton. I could have taken out for whoever TK is. I want to hear Jack as well today. Today he dropped back to Carlos's category, his take on DeMarcus Russell. Yeah, look at DeMarcus Russell. I mean, again, do we need to? First of all, he said he didn't like to use the word bust with DeMarcus Russell. I don't mean to bash Jack when he's not here to defend himself, but I bashed him on the show. So you can say bust. That's all he is. There's no other way to describe DeMarcus Russell's career with the NFL as a bust. Could he have made something himself? Did he have the talent? Probably. James Martin, who's a big LSU fan, mentioned he was disappointed, and he didn't take the job seriously. Came in overweight, didn't work hard, and he was a bust. And now he's stealing from kids. Volunteer coach in let's see, where was he? Where was that story? So he was a volunteer coach at Williamson High School in Mobile, Alabama. And now he's facing a lawsuit accusing him of taking $74,000 as a donation, meant as a donation to the school. He put it into a checking account and wrote himself a check quickly, and for $55,000. I don't see any comments here that Mr. Russell is denying this, so I think I probably said that when I had no voice. Kenny. Listen, we could do that. NBC did the soundless football game back in the 80s, if you remember. I think it was Jets in Miami. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they didn't have announcers. You heard the public address announcer. You heard the fans. That's all you heard. We can do that show this way, and it might go better. I won't be able to refute any of your takes. Vladdy, I think, is getting traded, by the way. I didn't catch the Ohtani story, Drew. Let's see. Yeah, it's not there. Maybe it's on The Athletic. Help me out. Help me out with that one, Drew. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Probably Sports Center thing, which I don't watch ESPN anymore. They're just like ridiculous. But Vladdy is starting to play better. He's going to get traded. I'm almost certain he'll get traded. The only guy safe, I think, in Toronto is Bichette. They already traded Kevin Biggio, who's been a bit of a bust. But I think everybody else is in play there. Yankees would love to have Vlad. Vlad has said he would rather die than go to New York, and this week he sort of softened that stance. So, but they're not trading him within the division. I think I said this Friday. I think the odds-on favorite to get Vlad would be the Astros. We'll see. Probably won't come cheap. Kenny. Well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Warren Moon, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Kapp, Sonny Jurgensen, Wyatt Tittle. Fine quarterbacks all. Terry Bradshaw's the only guy ever won it. Well, I shouldn't say that. Wyatt Tittle won championships. Sonny might have won. I'm not sure. Again, what we got to remember is this is the Super Bowls. My quarterbacks were all modern day quarterbacks, if you will. But I gave strong consideration to Unitas and Otto Graham, certainly Tarkenton. But at the end of the day, I like the guys I picked. James Martin had picked Warren Moon with his fifth pick. He's a great quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. I can't put him in the I can't put him in the top 5, though. I don't know that I would put Warren Moon in my top 10. And I wouldn't put Bradshaw in my top 10. He's got 4 Super Bowls, yes, but he's not a better quarterback than Dan Marino. He's not a better quarterback than 3 great quarterbacks you left off this list, trying to push my buttons, Kenny. Paul, Brady, Montana, Manning, Elway, Unitas, Marino. Okay, so I had a great debate, even with Manning. I almost left Manning out of this a couple of times. Definitely Elway and Marino. John Elway put 3 teams on his back. 3 teams or 4? How many Super Bowls did he lose before he won? He lost to the Giants. He lost to the Redskins. He lost to who else? Didn't he lose to somebody else? Who am I thinking? Who am I missing? 49ers. So he lost 3 Super Bowls before he won 2. But he took those first 3 teams on his back. Look at the talent level on those teams. And that's why always makes my top 5. And Unitas and Marino probably ended up being, at the end of the day, again, I had like 4 or 5 other guys in play for these last 2 spots. Elway won 1, and it came down to Unitas and Marino for me, and I took Marino just based on his overall talent. Top 20, again, I'd have to go through it a little bit deeper. Top 10 for sure. I think Warren Moon could crack the top 20, Danny, I think. But maybe not. If I go through this a little bit deeper, outside of 5 and start rating them, I don't know. Had who? So you won? You won the bet, or did or it's your wife? Byron Buxton finally healthy and hitting. We've been waiting for that, haven't we? For about, I don't know, 6 years. Twins outfielder, by the way, guys. Until the next injury, which will probably be a migraine caused by overthinking. Happy birthdays this morning, former first-round pick Todd Linden. Who the hell is Todd Linden? Good question. He played in the shadow of Barry Bonds. I do remember Todd Linden, outfielder. But again, if Todd Linden, if you're any good, you aren't stuck behind somebody forever. You get to play. So unfortunately, Todd probably wasn't. I probably shouldn't say that. I might have him interview him someday. Everyone be nice to Keith Engle has had a senior moment on the microphone. I did. It's not easy being old. Danny, I think if I remember from a post you had recently, you and I are basically, well, was it you? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to offend you right now. I don't know. I'll turn 64 here in just a few weeks. So, yes, my senior moments are increasing by astronomical moments. That boy who saved him, my hero. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that. I can't copy and paste here. Or can I? Hold on. Can I copy this? What will it let me do? Nah, see, I can't do it. Yeah, it'll take me too much. Let me put Otani in. And we'll see what we get. Because we like human interest stories on this show, don't we? Solo home run. I don't get anything. There we go. Bat Boy casually saved Otani's life. Let me watch the video. So Otani, it's on X. Hold on. Whoa, that's Otani. Where's Otani there? Oh, he's right behind him. That's pretty cool. So bat comes flying into the dugout. Was it a bat or a ball? It's a ball. Oh, the guy had a bat behind him. Nice catch by that. Wow, they should sign that guy up. That was well done. Catch that video on Twitter, guys. You can copy if you can copy it or put it in. Just put in Otani, you'll get it. He sure his wife did try to shut him up. Here's the problem, guys. If she was here, she'd still be able to hear me. She could probably hear me through the floorboards anyway. Okay, so the lesson learned here is check the comments quickly before you continue to talk for 10 minutes. Scott Colby's up early again today. Sorry about your Yankee struggles lately. Scott, I was thinking of you when the Vols, Tennessee won the College Baseball World Series because I picked them. Once we got out of, I might have picked them before, but I won't swear to that. But once we were out of the way and we had the final 16 teams, I picked Tennessee to win. I'll bet you I could have got a decent future bet on that. Don't know why I didn't take a shot here. Anyway, Scott, sorry about the Yankees' recent struggles with pitching and hitting. They're not really important, I don't think, to the game. But really being here in Boston, I am not. I know you're not. And Boston is like, they're not going to. Here's the thing. And Vlad would fit a lot of teams. Vlad would fit Boston. He'd fit the Yankees. Certainly fit the Astros. He certainly fit any number of teams that have had some injuries. There's somebody else that had it. Seattle, losing Ty France, I think, for the year. There's several other teams, and I think he's going to go outside the division because you trade a guy within the division and he comes back and haunts you later on. It's never a good look, and it's something that really doesn't happen a lot. It happens more probably now than it did in the past. But CA, good morning. How are you today? Great to have you with us out there in the great Southwest. I was surprised when James didn't take Breeze this morning. I thought Breeze would be in his top 5 somewhere. James had taken Brady and Montana, Manning, Otto Graham, and Moon, I believe, right? And Otto Graham, listen, I got into a little debate with Mac about Otto Graham and Tom Brady being the number 1 quarterback of all time. And I know Otto Graham won 7 championships. I know Otto Graham led, when he retired, he had led all the passing categories. But and Mac was kind of making my argument for me, I think, which if he sees this, if you pop in here at all, Mac, you can certainly chime back in. But, you know, the fact that he led all, and not that he wasn't a great player, but he led all those categories because nobody else was throwing the football at the time. So, of course, he was going to lead if he was a guy throwing the football. No, I didn't say they needed to be putting up outlandish passing stats. Field leaders such as Starr and Unitas can be listed too. That's why Unitas was on my list. And he did have, for his time, he did have some very good stats. It's a combination. I looked at Marino. Look at Montana makes a list because of his leadership in Super Bowls for me. That's why he's number 2. And I could even make an argument he could be number 1. Brady has both the titles and the numbers. Montana's numbers are a little bit lower than some other guys on the list that would be considered. But he's got the titles. I took Elway because of his leadership abilities and carrying 3 teams on his back that lost badly in a Super Bowl, I grant you, but 3 teams that had no business being in the Super Bowl. Who was my 5th pick? Oh, and Marino, based on the fact that he is definitely, absolutely talent-wise, one of the best quarterbacks ever to play. I had stated a couple times that Starr, Unitas, Otto Graham, these guys were all in my as I'm twirling these guys around my head, they were all in play for that 3rd and 4th spot, for 4th and 5th spot. Starr's underrated. Starr played on some great teams. His stats would never match up with anybody else's, but it isn't all about stats. But there is a combination. I looked at a combination of things. I don't ever look at just numbers. But, I mean, you can't deny Brady's got numbers and the titles. And by the way, let's remember something. Before you tell me what great teams Tom Brady played on, let's remember who Tom Brady won his first 3 Super Bowls with. Not one single Hall of Famer at the skill positions. Not one. And I don't think there will be, ever. None of these, and even later on those teams, except for Gronk, I don't think any of those guys are making a Hall of Fame. Not one skill position player will make the Hall of Fame on all the teams Tom Brady won in New England, except for Gronk. Skill position players. If you think I'm wrong, I'd love to hear you refute that. And I see Scott Colby top 10. Listen, I can't put Mahomes in just yet. I will. I think he will make this list, and I didn't put him on there only because he was currently playing and hadn't played long, really, relatively speaking, but he's won 3 Super Bowls already. I considered actually putting him in that top 5 and thought I couldn't just yet. So Brady, Montana, so you've got, you don't have, or do we have the same top 5? You got Unitas listed twice, so I don't think Unitas can win twice. Oh, I see you got Manning at 10. You only got 9 quarterbacks in your top 10 because you listed Unitas twice. Now, Unitas could be that good, and he rates twice. Oh, my God. Kenny Gifford, LOL. Still on the wife, muted him. You know, in response to this, and believe me, I'm not offended because I really don't get offended by anything. I literally don't get offended by anything. My wife would like to mute me many times because there are days where I know, and I think yesterday might have been one of those days. She just would like me to shut up. I've been on this rant since the debate because I can't turn on the news. She won't watch the news with me right now. So, but it could be anything. That's just this week's thing. I mean, it could be work. It could be whatever. JB, good morning. Yeah, your Orioles finally back in first place by themselves. 4 in a row, playing great baseball. But guys, you know what? That's why I can't say, oh, yeah, Yankees and injuries and the Braves and injuries. Just take a look what the Orioles are doing with the injuries they've had. So good morning, JB. Hiccups. I get the hiccups again. I get the hiccups every week with you guys. I think it's a talking. I don't think I got the hiccups while I was on mute. Brady took all his teams on his back. Well, again, I'm not saying there was not good teammates or those were really good role players around him, Paul. They had some really good defenses during some of those Super Bowl years. But those first 3 Super Bowls, they had great defenses. Offensively, I love Troy Brown. Troy Brown's not a great player. He's a very, very good player and a very good role player. David Patton. Deion Branch is probably, well, Troy Brown might be the best of them, but Deion Branch in that 3rd Super Bowl against the Eagles, he was a rookie, I think, or his 2nd year, is probably the best of all those wide receivers that he played with his first time around, and not even close to being a Hall of Fame player. And even the second time, great role players in, well, Welker, I don't think won a Super Bowl. Edelman, great role player, great playoff player, not a Hall of Famer. Nobody can tell me Edelman's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Nobody. Gronk's the only guy. And Gronk missed considerable time during Super Bowl seasons. So basically, Canada's waiting for the Winter Olympics for some sports glory again. Canada. I'm assuming that's a reference to the Oilers. Listen, the Oilers almost came back and made history. Only 3 teams in the history of professional sports have come back from 3-0 down. 2 of them in hockey back in the 40s. The Red Wings over to Maple Leafs, and then the Maple Leafs returned the favor, or vice versa. And sadly, the Red Sox against the Yankees in 2004. Could we? No, we can't have Phillips Rivers to that list. Chris, please, that if you're going to make those, I love Phil. I don't love Philip Rivers, but Philip Rivers was a good quarterback, a very good quarterback. I don't know how he even got it done with that little freaking hitchy motion he had, but he can't be on this list. Phillips Rivers won't make the top 25. He may not make the top 30. Now, it's a good question. A better question might be, is Philip Rivers a Hall of Famer? Philip Rivers and Matt Ryan are 2 guys I can't get my head around whether they should be in the Hall of Fame or not. I know this is, and if this is a joke, I need a little something more than that. That face you have on your profile picture here. Dave Gayette, someone here in Amsterdam has a nephew who was just drafted by the New York Islanders, taken 20th overall pick. The kid is only 18 years old and just graduated from high school. Where did he graduate from? I got to check this out now. I did not know this story. 20th. I'll put Islanders. Let's see who it is. I don't know who their top draft pick is. Cole Iserman. Let's check out Cole. We always like to check out the local guys. I mean, it's not local for all you guys, unfortunately. I apologize, but I do indulge myself here and there. Does he have a Wikipedia page? Probably not, right? I need to know something about him. So Cole Eisman, I'm going to look at he's 17 years old. So he got drafted out of high school, as he said. He was playing for the USNTDP Juniors of the United States Hockey League. He was drafted number 20 overall by the Islanders, as Dave said. Where's he from? Has a nephew. So he's from Massachusetts. He played in Newburyport, Massachusetts. That's where he's born. Sorry. He's a left winger. Interesting. We'll keep an eye on him. And when we get Jim Beringer on, and it's my own fault for not getting to Jim quicker the last couple of weeks, but we'll definitely talk to him. So congratulations there. Amsterdam's had some pretty good representation recently in professional drafts, or the area. I guess, Chris Iserman is not from Amsterdam, but who's he related to? Dave, if you don't mind me asking, put the name in there. Who in Amsterdam is his aunt or uncle? Scott Colby, top. You did it again. Oh, you gave me it again. See, and I could put Mahomes maybe. I debated. I almost put Mahomes at 5 already. But I think he's got some work to do. The playing career, if his playing career ended today, would you have him in the top 5? Brady, Montana, Elway, you have him in the top 6. So, would you have him there if his career ended today and he wasn't able to add to his numbers? I mean, he's won 3 Super Bowls, so that's not, chopped liver. Drew loved Rivers, but his teams didn't have the sustained success of others. Listen, I would also argue that he played on some great teams and didn't win. He played on some really good Charger teams with Daniel Tomlinson at running back. Ran into the Patriots a couple different times. You can blame it on Marty Schottenheimer if you want, but listen, your quarterback's got to take some. And I remember him, and to his credit, I remember him playing in, it might have been an AFC championship game in Foxborough when he was, barely able to walk. They had him, stitched together like the scarecrow. So listen, I'll give the guy credit. He was tough, but he never won the big game. At least Marino got to a Super Bowl. It was Danny, who is or will be your age. That's what I thought. Wait till you see the party we throw at the home, Keith. We're pumped up for the shuffleboard tournament on your birthday. Your job is to split up the teams. I can't pick. Well, we can't make those split. We can't pick those teams today because we still got 6 weeks to go or so. Scotty, and I don't know who's still going to be around. I mean, we're going to have, one of us could be gone for crying out loud by then, much less, the rest of the shuffleboard players. So we got to wait on that. I picked Tennessee as well. 110 to win the series after they lost game 1. I was actually talking about what their future bet was when they were, and you probably won't remember this. When they were one of the last 16, that's when I really wanted to jump on them. I probably should have jumped on them when the World Series, when the tournament began. Loved Tennessee this year. And they beat Texas A&M was a favorite. And the coach, I don't have a problem. Look, coaches leave all the time. Coaches mislead all the time, but you can't have that. I mean, you can say whatever you want in that press conference after the loss. And talking about Schlossnagel going to Texas. But don't give me all that. I left my family. I also like to know, I still haven't found the answer. Did he literally leave his family to go coach Texas A&M? Left them behind and they're on their own? Fending for themselves? And he gave up all this stuff to come into A&M, and then he lectures the writer. I get it. It's an emotional moment, but don't say anything. Just say this isn't the time to talk about it. That's all you have to say. Don't go into this thing lecturing the reporter and then take the job, 12 hours later, less than 12 hours later, probably. He was negotiating with him. I think Danny brought this up. Somebody brought this up the other day that he'd been negotiating at least through sources. He'd been negotiating with them since April. His translator bet on the over and under on the catch being made. Reference to Ohtani getting saved. That was a great catch. Remember the video of Evan Longoria? How many of you guys remember the video of Evan Longoria, right? Longoria. Being interviewed down, I want to say, the left field line, way down the left field line, and a line drive coming at the reporter's head and him just reaching out and catching it. Real or fake? I'm still not sure. Top 5 quarterbacks, overrated quarterbacks: Dan Marino, Drew Brees, Eli Manning, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott. That's good. It's a good list. I mean, depending on your criteria. Drew Brees won a Super Bowl and racked up a lot of big numbers and played on a lot of good teams. I'm not sure why we would put him overrated. Eli Manning, I won't fault you there, but he won 2 of the biggest games and 2 of the worst Sundays of my life. Best quarterback that I can remember the Giants having since Phil Simms, other than Phil Simms. And maybe better than Phil Simms. Carson Wentz, obviously. Dak, again, we'll find out. We're about to find out, I think, whether Dak can win, because he may be going somewhere else. And whether it's Dak or the way that organization is run. Scott says, "Oh no, we have returning Tristan Casa. We don't need Vladdy." LOL. Of course, we need a guy that can hit 50 bombs even at home. He's not going to trade him in the division, though. I mean, listen, he would look great. Who took Tarkenton? Jack over Marino. He took him in his 5th spot. So did he have? Are we talking about Jack? And I'm guessing his other picks then were Brady, Montana, Manning. Well, I don't know. I guess I need to know who his other pick was, because he may not have taken Elway either. I did see this, Drew. Number 1 Ks for left-handed reliever. It's funny when I talk about relievers. When we've talked about relievers, I'm not sure about I'm still not sure about Billy Wagner. Again, sometimes it's about, let me look at Billy Wagner's numbers again. By the way, please don't tell me. So by your argument, though, or maybe not, I hope you're not saying that Chapman deserves consideration as well, because that is certainly way out of in left field. I don't think you are. Let's just check. I got to look at it. I've done this 100 times. So he's an all-star. He finished the 4th in the Cy Young voting, 16th in the MVP voting in 99, MVP 23, Cy Young 6. And I know you're going to tell me nobody wins it. Sorry, they do. Willie Hernandez, some do. Not a lot. I get it. Sparky Lyle. Oh, not Sparky. Sorry. Sparky didn't win. Well, there's a handful. They're escaping my memory at the moment. But anyway, look at whatever. Relievers are very hard for me to judge. Very hard. What's his ERA? I know these numbers don't matter. 422 saves. This whip was under one. I don't know. I guess we've had this conversation a few times. I just don't know. It's hard to judge relievers. I could judge Mariano because Mariano was the MVP of those Yankee World Series teams. I love Jeter. I love Pettit. I love Posada. Mo was the MVP of those teams because he was unhittable in the postseason, except for one bloop frickin' single against Arizona. There's an interesting Bo Jackson inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame. Isn't there another Bo Jackson who's going to Auburn this year? I know he's going somewhere. I think in the Southeast Conference. I think it's Auburn. Bo Jackson, people talk about Deion, but Deion was not a good baseball player. He was just fast. Bo Jackson was a real deal. He had an arm. He could run. He could hit. He could hit for power. He even did it after he had a hip replacement. Not very well, but he still had some pop. But Bo Jackson and Brian Jordan are the best two-way players in my mind, two sport players. Bo Jackson was just a freak of nature. If he'd not played football and played baseball, I'd like to really see what he would have done with a 15 or 20-year career. Kenny loved watching Montana, but he had 15 Hall of Famers on that San Francisco team. Well, that's kind of my argument again about why Brady's ahead of him. Brady doesn't have 15 Hall of Famers on that team. Not even on, we count about some of those good defenses. The thing about the Patriots, and there'll be some Hall of Famers there, but skill positions, he didn't have a Jerry Rice ever. Randy Moss, they won no Super Bowls. Don't bring up Randy Moss to me because they won no Super Bowls with Randy Moss. Teams he won Super Bowls with had no Hall of Famer skill position players except for Gronk. And even on defense, they had some great role players. That's why that team was so good for so long. That coaching staff, including the greatest coach of all time, by the way, you can make all the arguments that he can't win without Brady you want. You'll never change my mind. Even Tom Brady understands that they did it together. Was that they put people in positions to succeed. They didn't ask people to do things they couldn't do. So they found a lot of good role players who could fill certain. Oh, there's the first Randy Moss. Danny Noonan, good morning, buddy. Yeah, I don't count Randy Moss because they didn't win any Super Bowls with Randy Moss. That's why I don't count them. Sometimes I misspeak and I say ever. I mean, even if you want to count him, that's two. And they won nothing with Randy Moss. He had 2 good years with Randy Moss, and he was gone. Randy Moss had one great year in New England and a very good one. Most of his damage was done with Minnesota. Good, it's a good point, but again, no wins. And Danny had a birthday this week. Happy birthday to Danny Noonan. Say hi to your dad. Get ready for the cigar box. Was Jim Kelly not right there in the heyday of Montana? Yeah. Jim Kelly I had in the mix too. I had Jim Kelly in the mix with that. I mean, he got the 4 Super Bowls. People ridicule that Buffalo team and Marv Levy and Jim Kelly and all those Buffalo Bills for losing 4 Super Bowls. Well, 4 straight Super Bowls. Well, I'd like to ask you how many teams, again, winning does matter. I'm not going to say they don't. It doesn't. But how many teams have gotten to 4 straight Super Bowls? That'd be 0. They were great teams. They never got over the hump. And I contend, and there's no way to prove this actually, obviously, that if Scott Norwood makes that field goal in the first Super Bowl, I think they might win 2 or 3 of those Super Bowls. Because after that, it was kind of like just waiting for something bad to happen. And it happened every time they got there, and it's a shame. So he was in the mix for me. There's a lot of guys in the mix for me for that 4th and 5th spot. A lot of guys. Obligatory Caitlin Clark talk and or bet Caitlin Clark over 6.5 assists today. I don't know if she'll get them because her coach just got on her for not shooting enough. Scott, didn't he? Didn't I just read an article yesterday or Friday that her coach has been getting on her recently for not shooting the ball enough? So maybe maybe the under is a good bet. I'm assuming you're saying over here. You know, the fervor has gone away about Caitlin Clark and the physicality that is being used against her in the last few weeks. I mean, you can't. People are just going to get tired of it after a while. So I think that might be one reason it's dying down. And she's playing better basketball as well. And I think some of that, maybe some of these other players are saying, well, we've made our point and let's just play basketball. Paula says, ditto on muting you as I get muted once a day. So let me get this straight. Paula wants me muted as well. My wife likes to mute me. She would like to mute me, I should say. Hold on. I got some stuff playing here. I don't know why. Why can't I? Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. So let's continue on here. Paula wants me muted. Hold on. Let me do it. I said, is that better for you, Paul? I'll add to it over 2.5 threes for Clark as well. Again, I guess based on my previous comment, if her coach wants her to shoot more, then the over on the threes might be a better bet. Brady dink and dunk, and then really, Kenny? Wow. So they design great offenses where they, bubble screens and whatnot. You never saw Tom Brady throw the ball down the field, I'm guessing. You need to watch more film of Tom Brady, by the way. And that's not to mention he ran for over 2,000 yards in his career. Just wanted to point that out. That's roughly, that's like 100 yards a season. A little less. Come on, you're not going to get my goat today. Not working. Chris F. Grave, if Rivers is on, then please come on, Kenny. How early did you get up today? I might keep Philip Rivers off my list, but I'm not going to compare it to one of the biggest draft busts of all time. Ryan Leaf should be compared to Russell, not Philip Rivers. Only once a day. Paul is showing great patience, or he wore her down. I think he steals a mute button, except for that one time, probably. Don't forget what Brady did for Malcolm Mitchell's career. Yeah. Great point. Malcolm Mitchell in that Atlanta Super Bowl. Has anybody heard from Malcolm Mitchell since that Sunday in February in 2017? Am I right? 7 or 8 catches for 125 yards. He beat Malcolm Mitchell. No, we've never heard of him again. And he's done that with a lot of guys. Again, I don't want to belittle Troy Brown. Troy Brown was a tremendous special team player. He played some defense when they had desperate need of somebody to fill in the secondary when he wasn't, he hadn't been. He didn't have a lot of experience playing in the secondary in the NFL or any, and equated himself fine. But these aren't Hall of Famers. I mean, Danny's got a point with Randy Moss, but again, if you don't win, what's it worth? Kid graduates. Who? Who's he related? Who's his aunt and uncle in Amsterdam? I still want to know. if I know them. Dave Guyette. It was 6 or 70 with Metro, but it did seem like a lot more. Thank you for clarifying that. But still, I mean, the point is still taken. I mean, that's an excellent point. Dinkin and Duncan, he comes back from 28-3. Whatever works. And Brady could throw the ball down the field, by the way. You don't accumulate the numbers that he did throwing the ball 5 yards.
Oh, they did run and catch. I forgot.
It's just, it's not fair. Oh, Marco Totti. Okay. Well, Totti's very well known in the Amsterdam area. Runs several businesses up in, well, I know in Amsterdam. I don't know if they still have the place up in Gloversville. Good guys, Mike and Marco Totti and their families. How come nobody mentioned Jim McMahon? Because he's not one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time. He's not one of the top 20. He won a Super Bowl. I mean, he's one of those guys that when I went through that Super Bowl list of great quarterbacks that won or non-great quarterbacks that won, there weren't many. And I got to put Jim McMahon on that list. He played a long time, but he's not on the level of even Marino. I know he didn't win a Super Bowl, but he also didn't play on one of the greatest didn't have one of the greatest defense of all time winning games for him. That Bears offense was pedestrian. I mean, they played with great field position a lot of times because of the defense. They had Walter Payton, maybe the greatest running back. For me, he's still the greatest running back of all time. And Willie Gault, a speedster on the outside. I mean, again, that was maybe the best defense, a single season defense ever in the history of the NFL. It was plus 350 somewhere in there for Tennessee. Gosh, man. That's 3,500 on 100. Should have done it. NHL free agency hits tomorrow. The Rangers are a playoff team. Can't see them needing anything. The biggest issue in the final series seems they just got tired. Well, they could use some depth then. I don't know what the Rangers will do. We'll have to get. I should have got Jim in here today to talk about impending free agency. I forgot it hit so quick. The NBA and the NHL, they have their drafts and then free agency starts like a week later. I'm in better position right now to talk about the Knicks and free agency. Really, to me, the only thing I'd like to see them do in free agency after the trade for Bridges and even what they did in the draft, because I think Kolek will help right away. I think the other two kids, the kids from Europe and Australia, will help down the road. But I think Kolek from Marquette can help right away, potentially. And I like what this Knicks team did. A lot of people getting on them for trading 5 first-rounders. This team's built to win now. So you don't need first-round draft picks because if you do as well as you should do, you're going to be picking in the 30s, late 20s, 30s anyway. This team, and again, Bridges is a great fit for this team. They signed OG. This trade and bringing OG back were imperative to matching up with the Celtics. That's all this is all about. Getting quicker and more athletic and more versatile, and wings that can compete with what the Celtics do. That's what this is all about, because the NBA is wide open. NBA's never been more wide open than it is right now. And this Knicks team can be the first in 51 years to win a championship. 51 years? Yeah, 51 years. Rangers, they can run it back. I do think, they probably need some help with some depth. And again, we'll get Jim in to kind of talk more about the Rangers and the NHL situation in general. The contract with Schlossnagle was done 3 weeks prior to the College World Series. Well, wouldn't that be tampering? I mean, how do you do that? Everybody tampers. I get that, right? It happens. We have this conversation a lot. The Falcons losing a draft pick when they tampered with Kirk Cousins is nonsense. Because when the free agency window opens in the NFL, that first hour, 2 hours, there'll be 20 signings. How could those guys possibly have negotiated a new contract if they weren't talking to these players and teams were talking to the players and players talking to teams before the window was theoretically open? Again, we continue to, in all these sports, colleges, professional, penalize guys for something everybody's doing. I don't have a problem with Schlossnagle taking a job. I don't have a problem with him talking about it and getting the deal done 3 weeks before. I got a problem with him at that press conference, not just saying, I'm not talking about that. You can't lecture a reporter for asking a legitimate question and then prove him right the next day. I mean, that's just a bad look. You look stupid. FLE. I wasn't sure what that was at first, Paul. I would thought it was like Latin. I've said this for a long time about Eli, and I guess it backs up Kenny's pick of him as one of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time. Eli had some good years. He won 2 huge games that I'd like to forget. But there's at times I've had the opinion that he is basically Jay Cutler with 2 fluke Super Bowl wins, which would back up Kenny's argument. Eli Manning, I don't remember what he did in his career. It's all blur to me. And you and me too, Scott. I mean, I've heard rumors about 2 big games he played in, and that's kind of what I'm basing my opinion on. I those days are a blur to me as well. Actually, in all fairness, as great as that Patriot team was in 2007, 17-0, Giants kicked their ass up and down the field that day. Patriots being in the game at all was a testament to the defense and a testament to, the coaching staff in my mind. I don't know, somebody. But the Giants deserve to win that game. They kicked their ass all the way up and down the field. I got no gripes about the first game at all. And the second game, great game. Very evenly matched, I thought, those 2 teams. They battled back and forth. And if Wes Welker catches the effing ball, the game's over. Congratulations, Eli, on your 2 Super Bowl wins. Oh, James didn't have Did James have Tarkenton in his picks? All right. Fair enough. Listen, Tarkenton was in the mix for me too, Rick, for that 4th and 5th spot. Him, Unitas, Starr, Bradshaw even. I mean, Bradshaw's numbers. Bradshaw to me, I probably give him demerits because, you talked about Montana playing with 15 Hall of Famers. How many did Bradshaw play with? And Bradshaw had weapons everywhere. And with all those weapons, and the game was different, so it's hard to compare errors, right? The game was different, but Bradshaw had Lynn Swann, and he had John Stallworth on the other side, and he had Franco Harris and Rocky Blyer. His numbers should have been better. I mean, that team probably could have won with Terry Hanratty playing quarterback. And I don't want to bash Bradshaw, but that's at the end of the day, I couldn't put him in my top 5 only because he'll stay in my top 10 because he's got 4 Super Bowl wins. But he's the one guy I can say I take him out Does that team still win 4 Super Bowls? Well, maybe not 4, because he did play great in a couple of those Super Bowls. But that game against Minnesota, Terry Hanratty could have played that badly, and the defense would have won the game for him. So anyway, again, it's hard. I don't really want to come off as bashing some of these guys. It's funny. I was just looking at Sunday morning here on the TV, and as I looked over, there was they're doing a little memoriam of people that passed away here, probably in the last week. And the Baby Bull came up, and so did Chuck Howley. 2 great players. We haven't dove into that at all today, but Orlando Cepeda was a very, very consistent ball player. I talked about this at the top when you guys couldn't hear me. Just a very, I think, a consistent player. Ended up with some bad knees. His numbers probably would have been better, but he was a Hall of Fame player. One of the first DHs. Remember when the DH was put into play, I mean, it was basically to try to keep, they wanted more offense in the game, but they also saw it as a way to keep some aging superstars in the lineup. It wasn't, you weren't seeing 20-year-old kids like you do today DHing. You had Cepeda and Rico Cardi and Hank Aaron. Well, Aaron, not the first year, but third year of it. Jim Ray Hard, I remember. I know I'm forgetting some guys. Tommy Davis. I'm thinking some of those early DHs, and Orlando Cepeda was one of those guys. Might have been that best DH that first year they had it in 1973. And Chuck Howley was just a tremendous force on defense for that Cowboy team. You can hate the Cowboys all you want. Chuck Howley is one of the best defensive players ever to step on a football field. And he's the only defensive player, the only player on a losing team to win the MVP. PDC World Cup is on FanDuel TV Extra Channel. I don't know if I have that. I got to look. FanDuel Extra Channel TV. You got to look for that. I'm assuming it's an app I can download on my TV, right? Quarterfinals, England versus Northern Ireland right now. Jesus, there's no bombs being thrown, I hope. Not to offend any Catholics or Protestants in our audience today. Sorry. Wagner knew where his pitches were going. Chapman still doesn't, so no Hall of Fame for Chapman. Though he'll probably get in, and I don't think he'll get in. How is Chapman going to get in? I mean, I got to look at relievers that aren't in, and I got to believe I can come up with 10 that are better than Chapman. I'm going to have to do that before we do another MLB show. Giro, I think when we come back from the holiday week off, I think we'll do a little recap of the first half in our picks. So that'd be probably the 12th. I may miss it. With summer here, I may miss another Friday later in July. I think we're going away to the shore for a long weekend. I'd probably leave at noon on a Friday. But depending on when I get out there, I may still do the show. I may go out early and then work out there. I don't know. We'll see. But I think we ought to do that recap probably that week I come back. Jim Thorpe was the best all-time two-way player, and he excelled in many sports. Well, I'm not going to argue that. Again, it was so far gone. Which one you got me on? The Jim Thorpe. Welcome, Ray Phillips, by the way. Good to have you with us today. Another Boston fan. I got too many Boston fans coming in this show now. Speaking of that, Scott Colby. Now you got somebody to back you up. You and Paul Spada. But welcome. Are you telling me that he's right about Jim Thorpe? And listen, I'm not going to leave Jim Thorpe out of this conversation. But he played so long ago, and he didn't play baseball for long. he was a great athlete in general. He won the decathlon, correct, in the Olympics, and tremendous football player. I won't argue that fact. I was thinking more in the modern era. So, because people like to bring up Dion, and I don't get the whole Dion thing. But again, welcome, Ray. Good to have you with us. And why are you shouting at me? Just kidding. Oh, God. Scott Colby, Ryan Leaf. No. Rick Meyer was terrible, but he wasn't Ryan Leaf terrible. God, don't make me look this up, Scott. By the way, can you believe to this day, one of my big problems with Bill Parcells when he was coach of the Patriots, his first year, they had the number 1 pick, and we know he took Drew Bledsoe. And we know that later on they took, with his input, Drew Bledsoe. And later on, he left the team because he felt they weren't giving him enough input into the draft because they took Terry Glenn and not a defensive player who I can't remember now he wanted. Because he made the famous line, if they want me to cook the dinner, they should let me shop for some of the groceries. Well, what people don't remember is there was some debate with the Patriots. And Scott, I don't know if you remember this or not. There was some debate about whether Rick Meyer or Bledsoe should be the first pick. And if there was any debate at all, then that's one reason he shouldn't be making those types of decisions. Anyway, with that said, Rick Meyer. Let me look at Rick Meyer's stats. And let me look at Pro Football. So Rick Meyer's career lasted 10 years. He threw for how many touchdowns? 50 touchdowns, 76 interceptions. I mean, he was terrible. Let's not, I won't mince words. He was terrible. He actually didn't have a bad second year. Not great. Bad. So not good. 50 and 76. What's Ryan Leaf? I got to believe, if Ryan Leaf isn't a lot worse than this, I will put myself on mute again. Oh, man. Ryan Leaf played 3 years, threw 14 touchdowns and 36 interceptions. Rick Meyer is not nearly as bad as Ryan Leaf. Seriously. Oh, my God. You're in the Rockies? So do you, I got to ask you, see, I don't know if I've asked you this before because you're around so much. Do you travel like in a Winnebago around the country or the Southwest, or how do you get around? I take the Rice and Lendls of the world over the Mosses and Macaros. I take the Rice and Lendl, so Jerry Rice and Yvonne Lendl, I'm guessing, of the world over the Mosses and the McEnroes. However, we miss the talented punks when they're gone. We do. Listen, those guys, we hate them while they're playing. And if they're on our team, we don't hate them. And I would put Bjorn Borg, in Lendl's place in that comment. But I get what you're saying. Very good, CA. Scott says the year Tom Brady threw for 50 TDs, didn't Randy Moss have 220? I don't think he had 2,200 yards. But again, no Super Bowl. Dink and Duncan, look at him in the Super Bowls. Not only much Dink and Duncan most of those games. No, listen, there was a lot of Dinkin and Duncan, but that was the offense. By the way, don't talk to me about Dink and Dunks without talking about Montana. What was the West Coast offense? Was all freaking short passes. Yeah, so they threw the ball down the field a lot. In 2007, they didn't win. I get that. I can't really discount that season of Randy Moss and use that one in my argument, I guess, Scott, is my only point. But please, I mean, John Unitas was a dinker and dunker for a lot of his career. I mean, he wasn't throwing 50-yard bombs. Who's throwing 50? I mean, gosh. So you tell me that Namath, because he could throw this really pretty pass 70 yards and complete 49% of his passes and throw more interceptions in his career than touchdowns, is a better player than Tom Brady, I guess. The only guy that we talked about that really threw the ball down to John Elway dinked and dunked. Go back and watch the drive. The great 98-yard drive against Cleveland to get them to their first Super Bowl. He dinked and dunked it all the way down the field. You take what's given you. That's what good quarterbacks do. Right? The only guy I can think was a mad bomber on this list was Bradshaw. And he had two guys, and Lynn Swann bailed him out more than once. There's another guy who barely has more touchdowns than interceptions. And I know the game is played differently. 52% pass completion record. And he's got Swann and Stallworth to bail him out. He can just throw the ball up in the air. And I really don't mean to disparage Terry Bradshaw. I don't. That's a great point, Scott. So now winning Super Bowls puts you in the top 5. I didn't say that. I got Marino in my top 5. Hey, Kenny, you're not listening. You're listening to one part of the argument. Yes, numbers mean something. Winning Super Bowls means something. Leadership means something. Elway is there because he took 3 teams on his back to a Super Bowl. Tarkenton got consideration from me. He lost 3 Super Bowls. I didn't say that. I mean, you got to listen to the whole conversation. There's several great leaders who didn't win titles. I just said, Kenny Anderson's a great point. I love Kenny Anderson. Love Kenny Anderson. Top 20 quarterback. Not top 5. Not even close to top 5. I'm sorry, he's not. Roman Gabriel, very talented quarterback. Earl Morrall, I'm not so sure I'm going to give that to. Earl Morrall was a journeyman quarterback. He was a great leader. I mean, he stepped in and led the Dolphins to, I want to say, at least half their wins in their undefeated season during the regular season. But come on. Again, you got to listen to what I'm saying. I never said Super Bowls put you in the top 5. Dan Marino didn't win any. But winning has to mean something. It's got to fit. It's got to fit into the equation. I had Tarkenton in the mix for 4 and 5. I had Unitas in the 4 and 5. He won a Super Bowl. I didn't have any of these guys in my mix for the top 5 because they're not even close to the top 5. And I guarantee you, as much. And again, I love Kenny Anderson. Roman Gabriel was a really good quarterback. Earl Morrall, again, had his moments, but he was a journeyman most of his career. And I doubt you're going to get anybody to disagree with me that these guys don't, other than yourself, don't deserve consideration for to be in the top 5 of all time. They're all really good quarterbacks. Kenny Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. I've gone on some of the NFL groups that I'm on a lot and advocated that Kenny Anderson belongs in the Hall of Fame. Nobody threw a better ball than Kenny Anderson. You wanted to talk about tight spirals. But Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame just because of winning the Super Bowl. And I think he should be there because he's one of the and I also discounted, by the way, if you listen to the arguments against Terry Bradshaw, I discounted the fact that he won 4 Super Bowls, that some other quarterback probably could have won with those teams as well. So, you're picking little pieces of my argument to try to use them against me, and it doesn't work that way. Listen to the entire argument, and again, I'm really not disparaging anybody. Well, there's some names that came up today that I would disparage. Listen, Warren Moon came up today as a top 5 quarterback for James Martin. And I didn't agree with that. I might put Kenny Anderson above Warren Moon. And Warren Moon's in the Hall of Fame. Kenny Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. But I get it. As I mentioned when JB came in the room, yes, the Orioles have taken over first. They're a game ahead now. They're actually ahead on Friday when we did the MLB update, as they were a game ahead in the loss column. But they have won 4 in a row. The Astros are back, as I said. Other streaks of note: the Angels and Padres. The Angels winning 6 is a listen. Ron Washington has been dealt a bad hand there. But speaking of the Angels, though, they're not going to win anything. But it's nice to see them make a run. Trout is confident he'll be back by the end of July. I don't know, who knows. And the bad end of Rangers the Rangers are burying themselves. And there's, once they get healthy, they're not going to be even, I shouldn't say that. There's 10 wild cards. So Rockies, we know, stink. Tigers, who I picked to be good. And the Red Sox just came off a really good streak, and now they're on a bad one. I think this year, the Red Sox are one of maybe the most schizophrenic team in all of baseball. Don't steal Danny Fuller's. Listen, as I told Danny, and Danny's been kind of riding me, and so's JB a little bit. I haven't seen Steve Steve here. Let me see if Steve comments came through. I see Steven there. Hi, Steven. I'll put your comment up in a little bit. I was just checking my personal page to make sure the comments are coming through, and they are. Listen, I love the Yankees. My Yankee fandom will never change. I'm not a bandwagon jumper. My team in football has been in the shitter for the last 3 of the last 4 years. My love doesn't change. My opinions do. I don't look at the Yankees when they had the best record in baseball and say, "Yep, this team is on its way to a world championship." Are they in contention? Sure. I pointed out all the red flags that are becoming a problem right now a long time ago. And so again, your point is certainly amenable. Who else is around today? You know what I didn't do, and I apologize, Joe LaRussa. Thank you I see Joe LaRussa there. Because of my issue, let me do a little quick public service announcement here, because I meant to do it at the top of the show, and our technical difficulties caused by my user error. Guys, I want you to check out the Ted Williams Camp Alumni and Friends Jimmy benefit coming up on July 13th out in, was it Lakeland, Massachusetts? I can't read that there, but this is on my page, on the TGI Sports Talk page. I posted this. I posted all the giveaways they're doing, the blind auctions that they're doing. If you sign up by July 10th, you can win 4 free tickets to the Yankees, I think Yankees Red Sox game out there. They're also giving away some minor league tickets. So check this out. Great cause. Jimmy Fund is a wonderful cause. Everybody we know has been touched in some way by cancer. Jimmy Fund was set up, I believe, originally to help kids with cancer, but now it is also helping adults as well. So great cause here. I will continue to promote it through the date. And I'm glad I saw Joe LaRussa make a like. A few other people watching right now. Don Nicole Law. Tanner D's there. Good afternoon or good morning, Tanner. Good to have you with us if you're listening still. Got your message the other day. We'll chat after the holiday. I miss you too, buddy. Matt Brust, former great player on the St. John's teams that were really good in the Big East back in the 80s. We had Matt on the show, one-on-one with Keith Engle a while back. Jesse Malaro's out there. As I mentioned, Joe LaRusso. These are some people I can see. And Ralph Williams is out there. I mentioned Ralph before. He may have a comment coming up. So Just looking at where our viewers are. Quite a few on Next, quite a few on TGI Sports Talk's YouTube page, quite a few on our Facebook page. So good stuff there, guys. Drew, run differentials getting out of hand at the top. Dodgers, Baltimore, Philadelphia at the top, even the Guardians on the other end for jocularity purposes. Okay, Father Mulcahy. You know, it's funny. One place, and again, run differential is what it is. Sometimes it can be misleading, as I talked about before. Not that, again, it's obvious teams that are good are going to outscore the teams by more than the teams that are bad. The Diamondbacks have a similar run differential to last year when they made the playoffs. I'm sorry. And this year they got a losing record. So again, you know, you're playing with fire. To me, I like the close, and I think Drew, I think you proved me wrong that because I talked about this a couple of weeks ago that I'm more interested in one run records in one run games, and pretty sure when you put some of those numbers up, they kind of ran in line with some of these run differentials. So that's good. Do I see a team in baseball out of the playoff mix to make? Well, yeah. Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Chris, but I'm thinking you mean other than the obvious A's, White Sox. White Sox, by the way, let's see what they do. Where are the White Sox? Oh, they won 3 in a row. Now they're ahead of the pace. They will not lose 120 games or 121 games based on this 3-game winning streak. Their trend now would be probably, I'm going to say 118 losses. I'm just doing stupid math in my head. Before these last 2 wins, it was 120 loss pace. So who do I see out of it? I mean, because of the fact that there's 10 wild cards in each league. Let me go to the wild card. If I go to the wild card, it'll help me a little better. Teams are out of it. So what do we have? 3 wild cards in each division, right? 12 teams make the playoffs. So right now the Red Sox, the Astros, and Tampa would hold those spots in the American League. Listen, so the Blue Jays are 3 games out. The Rangers are 4 games out. The Tigers are 4 games out. The Angels are only 5 games out. So I'm saying the A's, the only team in the American League that's really out, I don't believe in the Angels, so I'm going to put them in the list. 3 teams in the American League are out of it. Angels, Athletics, and White Sox. I'm not buying a 6-game winning streak for the Angels. Just don't think there's enough talent there. In the National League, the Diamondbacks and well, this actually right because I'm sorry. So I take this back. I got this wrong. I'm counting 6 teams. Let me go back to the American League. I'm looking at this wrong. The Royals would be the last team. So whoever's already posted, I got this wrong. Sorry about that. I was thinking they had all the teams in the wild card mix. They've eliminated the division leaders. So the Royals would have the last one now. So the Red Sox would be 3 back. The Astros would be 5 back. The Rays would be 5 back. The Blue Jays would be 7 back. 8 back for the Rangers. I'm going to give the Rangers. I'm going to say the Blue Jays are out of it because they're going to dismantle this team. So I'm putting the Blue Jays out. I'll give the Tigers the benefit or the Rangers the benefit of doubt. I think the Tigers are out of it now. Angels, Athletics, White Sox. Sorry about that. I misspoke earlier. In the National League, you got the Braves, the Padres, and the Cardinals. Mets are just 2 games back. Diamondbacks are just 2 games back, even though they're 3 games under 500. The Giants are just 2 games back. The Pirates, the Nationals, the Reds, all 3 games back. And the Cubs. So here's the teams I think are out of it still. I don't care. Rockies are out of it. The Marlins are out of it. The Nationals aren't going to get a wild card. The Pirates aren't going to get a wild card. I think everybody else is in play in the National League. So there you go. Curious about the crazy Saudi baseball season coming up. That's cricket country in Saudi Arabia. I can't see sports fans appreciating a good 3-to-score game for, I really can't get interested in anything the Saudis are doing because, that's not a country run by anything other than terrorists. So, this is my big problem with Live Golf and, all the Saudi money now that's going to come into the PGA Tour once this merger of Live and the PGA Tour comes into play. Yeah, there's a lot of blood money involved in anything the Saudis do. I mean, they mistreat their own people. The women are treated so badly. They kill journalists who speak out against them. And not to mention, the number of Saudis and the Saudi money involved in 9/11. I just can't even get into the Saudis. I'll enjoy this one. Max Fried leads the MLB in complete games with 2. A lucky 13. I'm shocked that there's 13 or 14 pitchers with complete games, Drew. Drew knows how to get the top of my head to blow off. We're going to talk when we get Jeff Fry on, hopefully in a few weeks. We'll talk to Brett Saberhagen definitely about the change in pitching. Brett Saberhagen is a former Cy Young Award winner, World Series winner with the 85 Royals. Great pitcher in his time. And even then, pitching was just starting to kind of change. Tony La Russa hadn't totally influenced how we use bullpens yet, but we were getting there. You look at some of the complete game numbers of guys who pitched up until, say, 1985 compared to now, or even into the 90s. These guys won't complete as many games in their career as these guys completed in the season. CA's got some breaking news. As long as you're needed, you can be a walking, talking hypocrite. Remember my first comment? Sports is a micro. It wasn't today, but I remember the comment. At least I missed it. Sports is a microcosm of society's dilemmas, failures. Well, that's true. As long as you're needed. It's a great play. I agree. I didn't even get into today the Marcus Stroman thing. We haven't even talked that much about it. It's probably blocked out when I was on mute. But I found Marcus Stroman's actions berating a teammate on the field, showing him up. I don't care. I think Gleyber Torres stinks too, Marcus. I'm not his teammate, and I'm not out there in the field with him. And that was a totally ridiculous display you put on, I think, twice in one game the other night. And he's pitched pretty well for the Yankees, but again, he's not a guy that I wanted his character in my clubhouse. And that's one of the reasons why. You saw a shot later on of Judge and Stroman in the dugout, and I got to believe Judge very quietly, like a Derek Jeter would do. He is the captain, telling him, that's not how we do it here. Reed Detmers led that league last year with one complete game. Oh, God. Cepeda, Giants, Cards, and Red Sox. Great, consistent Hall of Famer with apparently really well-liked too. Not easy to find both of those things in one person. I agree. Listen, another guy whose career numbers probably would have been much better, but he played on bad knees. Probably the last half of his career, I want to say. Those Giant teams, I recently read a book about the Giant Dodger rivalry, and most of the book really focused on their time, that rivalry as they moved out to the West Coast. They covered they quickly covered the history of it up till then, but most of it was focused on West Coast. After, when the Giants first went out to the West Coast, those early years, they had some pretty good young players.
they couldn't find a place for McCovey to play because they had Cepeda at first base and they had Mays and Alou and I can't remember the other outfielder, but all the Alou brothers played at some point, but they're not the guys I'm thinking of. They had a hard time finding a place for Willie McCovey to play for a long time. And then they moved Ray Sadecki finally in the mid-'60s, I want to say, to the Cardinals for Ray Sadecki, former Met. But he was, by all accounts, a really fine person as well as a great player. And as I said, he was one of the first guys. And I think in 1973, he might have been the most productive DH of all those guys, Drew. Let me see if I can pull up a list. 1973 DHs. Let's see what I get. I want a list. No, you're not going to give me. Let me put in the list. We all know Ron Blumberg was the first guy. I think it was a race, actually. If I remember right. No, they were playing Boston that day, so it wasn't a race between him and. I just can't get a list. 1973 baseball season. I guess I'm not going to find it. Anyway, based on my own memory and recollection, I'm going to say Orlando Cepeda had the most productive year in 1973, the first year of the DH. I just found Jay Schroeder also played Major League Baseball. He played in the minor leagues. I don't think he played in the majors. Guys got me looking up a lot of stuff here today. Let's find out. Jay Schroeder, Wikipedia. Baseball career. Began a sports career in the Blue Jays minor league organization. Was drafted 3rd overall in the 1979 baseball draft by the Blue Jays. Had a career batting average of .213 in the minors. Tells you why he never played in the major leagues. Inducted into the Kinston Professional Baseball Hall of Fame in 1996. I have no idea what that is. I'm going to guess that's where he grew up. No, I don't know. He did not play in the major leagues, though. Minor league player. I do remember that, actually. And if I'm missing something there, please let me know. Actually, let me look him up here. You get to their pitching. So if I look him up here, let's just check him out, make sure. Jay. Yeah, see, he doesn't even come up. He doesn't even come up in the reference major leaguers. So if I look at minor leagues, I would get him. FanDuel TV is probably on most apps, Free Live, Amazon, Tubi, Pluto. Well, those are all individual apps, Tubi, Pluto, Amazon. Oh, maybe you're talking about the, I don't know. Well, we'll check it out. Absolutely. Remember the talk with Bledsoe. Yeah. Freaking Rick Meyer. Imagine if we ever took Rick Meyer. Hello, Steven. How are you, buddy? I said hello earlier. Sorry it took me so long to get to your post here. We got a lot of stuff going on here today. People think the Guardians pitchers are always great, but Tristan McKenzie and Logan Allen have given up the most HRs, 19 and 76, 18 and 79, respectively. You know, to me, and again, I'm not saying it's. I think home runs are sometimes an overrated stat. It all depends on when you're giving those home runs up. And again, I don't know in this case whether it's good or bad, Drew. So, I mean, your point is certainly taken. One of the guys who gave up the most home runs that I can remember in my youth when guys were pitching 300 and plus innings a year was Catfish Hunter. But, you know, the great majority of them be one-run home run or single home runs. Solo home runs. I knew I had a word in there because he didn't walk anybody. So you can give up 18 or 19 or even 40 home runs in a season, which we're on a pace for here. Of course, they would do that in 300 innings, not 150. And if they're all solo home runs, it's not that big a deal. But if you're walking a couple of guys in front of them, well, then it becomes a big deal. But that's a warning sign for the Guardians for sure. Of course, it's in the UK on Sky Sports. I think I have Sky Sports actually on my Spectrum. I think Spectrum streaming. The prettiest passes were thrown by the fabulous Joe Cap. Actually, if you liked, yes, if you liked end over end passes, Joe Cap was the best, man. But Joe Cap played a lot of football. Another guy started in Canada. And Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Bud Grant brought Joe Cap into the NFL from Canada because Bud Grant I don't know if he played for Bud Grant in Canada, but Bud Grant was a very successful coach in Canada before coaching here in the NFL. And Joe Cap he was like a brute out there. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, in the longest yard, he played a linebacker, didn't he? All right, thought I'd drop my coffee. So that's funny. Yankees. Nobody knows how to say Yankees anymore. Pitchers led all major league base hitters. And good. Well, let's hit people. I want to think, and I don't know this for a fact. I do know in certain instances, somebody's hit, and I'm happy to see guys getting hit by pitches because that means pitchers are pitching inside, which a lot of times they're afraid to do because pitchers don't know where the hell the ball's going, to your point earlier about Chapman. And they get banged around. They give up home runs because they don't pitch inside. And it may also point to the fact that maybe they protect their own a little better than some other guys do today. So, again, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a negative or a positive without digging further into it. But I don't have a problem with guys hitting guys. Pitch inside. You hit somebody, Don't throw in their head. Unless they deserve it. Been a little while since we mentioned Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick would be top 5 if Albert hadn't spoken his mind. Who's Albert? Who's Albert? By the way, Colin Kaepernick wouldn't make top 5 anything. Again, I'm going to tell you plainly, Colin Kaepernick never made it back to the NFL because he was not a good quarterback. He had one good year in a tricked-up offense, and the league caught up with it. Not a good quarterback. I know some guys will never get that through their head. They think he's been blackballed for speaking his mind, and wasn't any good. 2 separate issues. Don't tell me they kept him out just because of that. We had guys who killed 2 people in Atlanta during the Super Bowl week that played and continued a Hall of Fame career. We get wife beaters. Guys carrying guns. Guys killing people in cars. And they all get it. What do we call the guy in Cleveland that I won't say his name, Drew? If he could play, he'd be in the league, believe me. Or would have been. It's getting late now. Jeremy says, with the Rockies winning a game due to a pitch call. I talked about this. I don't know if it was Friday or maybe even a week before. It was last Sunday, maybe. Ridiculous. That's not what the rule's for. The rules to speed up the game, which if that's what you want, yes, play boring baseball in 2 hours instead of 4, and I'm very happy. But it's not, it shouldn't ever end a game. Never. Never, ever. That's not what the rule's for. And yes, it is ruining baseball for a lot of reasons. All those rules they put in 2 years ago, whatever it was, the pitch clock, the elimination of the shift, which again, I can give you that one if you want me to. Making the bases larger, which by the way changes the whole dynamic of the game. We're no longer 90 feet apart. The bases, you can't throw over to first base more than twice, and artificially increase the steals that we see. But this one is hurting pitchers' careers. They're getting injured, which is not the only reason. They're out there and told to throw as hard as they can, as long as they can. They don't have the right mechanics. Sometimes they're rushed by the pitch clock. It's ridiculous. We have rules for these things. Thanks for bringing that up again, though. Glad we can finally hear you. Are you sure? Some people aren't so sure. See, we got several private properties only in America now. But strong ties to the UK and EU. Travel by RV. That's what so say. Oh, sailing too. My brother's been handling international flights since Wuhu from Wuhan. You were flying to Wuhan? Did you bring back that virus? CA was in the lab. Hello, Matt. Lindioff. I always say your name wrong. Is it Lindioff? Lindioff. Sorry, Matt. I'm not good with last names. Drew will tell you. It's good to have you with us, Matt. What's this? No, you're right. Drew's also telling me I need to get feedback. Sorry, I was looking at a couple things because I was waiting for a message from somebody, and I got messages from Danny and Drew and Rick and it's only happened once. Thank you for your feedback, though, Drew. Lakeland, Massachusetts. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. Great cause, the Jimmy Fund, guys. If you can't get out there, it is a long ride. And I wanted to get out there and participate and maybe even do something live from out there, but it's a 3-hour ride. 3.5-hour ride, I think, from where I am. But you can go online and make a donation there. And I think if you register, you can still potentially win the Yankee tickets. The greatest name ever made up, Stankies. I don't think you guys made it up, by the way. Love the shout out against cancer. I agree, man. Everybody, one way or another, you touch. If you're not touched yourself, if you haven't touched your family, it's touched somebody you know for sure. All of us, and it's a despicable thing. And gosh, we need to find a way to eradicate this, especially when it's in kids. When it's in kids, it's just like, it's the one place where when I think about again, not to dive off into cause a whole debate here on religion or anything else. When I have my doubts about, and again, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, greatly spiritual. But when I think about supreme beings, I don't understand. I have a hard time reconciling children's suffering, right? I understand a lot of other things, and I can rationalize other things, but I never understand the suffering of children. Mets after a 16-4 record. Mets have played great baseball recently, Danny. Maybe, and listen, there's some talent on that team. It's not like they don't have talent. Their pitching is very suspect. It's going to be interesting to see what this team does at the deadline with Alfonso now. Because I said before, if they were in contention or out of contention, they should trade him and negotiate with him in free agency. But that may not be an option now. When Don Cherry coach, great NHL coach with Bruins and other teams, and also host of Hockey Night in Canada for a long, long time. We talked about him with Mr. Rosen a few weeks ago. Chris had helped me get him on the show. I appreciate that. If his team ran up to score, he would set his scoring lines and play the fourth. He remembered his scoring line shouting, "Go Power," when the boys were on the ice. Well, I don't have a problem with professional teams run up to score. I really don't. It's your job to stop me, not me, or not mine. Better question. What team today that's in the MLB playoff spot in 6 won't make it at the end? That's a good question too, Danny. And I would say, based on that question, the Royals would be my first pick. I'm going to pick one in. I'll pick one in the American League. I think the Twins get in. I think the Royals in the American League, and I think the Padres. Although they may suck. I'm going to say the Padres in the National League. Although the Padres won 5 in a row, as Drew mentioned earlier. But they're very schizophrenic. They're a little like, and they're 5 games over, because one of my running jokes on the MLB update is every time I look, they're 3 games under or 3 games over 500. It seems like for the last 2 years. But now they're 5 games over. I think this 9-1 in their last 10. But I think it's the Padres. I like the Cardinals. I like the way the Cardinals are playing now. I think this is what I expected out of this Cardinal team, and I think they'll play better going forward. And I expect better results from the Diamondbacks and the Giants, and maybe even the Reds in the second half. Keith Engle, feeling on tonight's game. Will the Rangers hit an Oriole player, and how do you feel about sending a message? I think messages should be sent when they're warranted. You saw what happened in the Yankee-Orioles series last week when Judge got hit, whether it was on purpose or not. You got to protect your players. Because here's the thing. Pitchers should pitch inside. And they shouldn't be afraid of hitting guys. But you also have to protect your players. When your players get hit, you have to protect them. And pitchers who don't protect their players, and they find out later on that doesn't go so well for them. Because you're not going to have the respect of your teammates, you're screwed on the mound. Always protect your players. Send a message where it's warranted. I don't want guys getting hit in the head. But guys getting hit to send messages, totally warranted. And there's multiple situations where that can come into play. Your guy gets hit. Your guy gets, football tackled at second base. Well, by the way, you can't do that anymore in Major League Baseball. I forgot about that. Last quarterfinal now, Scotland versus Sweden. I don't have a joke for that. I don't have an inappropriate joke for that or an appropriate joke. Thank you, Jeremy. You're one of the few guys who agree with me on this whole Colin Kaepernick thing. He was not a good quarterback. Just wasn't. Harbaugh tricked up the offense with that pistol offense, and the league catches up to those things. He wasn't accurate at all enough for today's game. So again, here comes Joe Cap played for Bud and Canada. He did play for Bud and Canada. Laugh you want, but I'm not laughing. He was some productive. He took a team to a Super Bowl. They were big favorites in that Super Bowl when they lost to the Chiefs. He says, laugh if I want, but Joe Cap threw 7 touchdowns in a game and was last to do this. I wasn't commenting on his ability, just his spiral. the how picturesque his passes were. How about that? Those end over in passes end up in touchdowns. It's very effective. A lot of great quarterbacks, by the way, didn't throw pretty passes. Bradshaw threw a beautiful spiral. Namath threw a beautiful. Well, Namath not always. Trying to think of some guys that were really good. Unitas wasn't that great. I mean, Unitas was okay, I guess. I can't think of guys. I know there's not. I know there's other guys. Massage molester, thank you. That freaking loser up in Cleveland. So not only does he get a second chance, he gets a big contract that just blows up the whole quarterback market salary-wise. Guys who shot themselves in a bar. Plexico Burris, thank you. Funniest thing I ever heard. Right? So, and I assume Jeremy, maybe there may be other guys. There may be other guys. Oh, maybe 2 years ago? I thought you were talking about plexiglass. What do you got here? Let me second this for a second. Guys who shot themselves at a bar. You said it looks like 2 years ago, so I'm sure it's not plexiglass. But one of the great stories I can tell you is a guy that worked for me at the time that Plexico he was with the Giants, shot himself in a nightclub in New York because he had a gun in his freaking pajama bottoms or whatever the hell he was wearing in a nightclub. And Bloomberg was going to throw the book at him. Plexico went to prison. Went to a prison here in upstate New York, or almost Western New York, upstate Western New York. I know somebody that was there at the time. Not visiting, by the way. But Plexiglass got the book thrown at him by New York City, New York State for weapons charges. And this guy used to work for me. Maybe he's watching today. And if you are, sorry I'm telling this story, but it's ridiculous for you to even have said this, which I told him at the time, so I'm not telling stories out of school. He said to me, if that was Tom Brady, nothing would have happened to him. And I'm like, that's the stupidest thing you ever have said. First of all, Tom Brady's not out in a nightclub at 3 o'clock in the morning with a loaded pistol in his pajama bottoms. Jesus, what a knucklehead. Kenny, just remember, if you stop one of the, I'm not sure who you're talking about, Jeremy, so I'd love to know who that is, because I'm not remembering it now. I probably will when you bring it up. But the police report's so long and now in the NFL that I can't really keep track. Just remember, if you stomp on the big boys' toes, they turn and squash you. That depends. If we're talking about taking care of your players, yeah. I mean, you hit a guy, he may come back. That's his retaliation, right? Is to knock the ball through the box or hit a home run. But yes, there should be different forms of retaliation depending on. I talked to who did I talk to? Oh, Jim Sundberg 2 weeks ago during a one-on-one interview show about Lenny Randle. He was there today. Lenny Randle ran over a pitcher. What a great, and Billy Martin, it turns out, told Lenny to do this. I thought Lenny did it on his own all this time. This was back in 74, 75. The pitcher was Milt Wilcox, and he'd hit a couple Rangers, and Billy told Randall to bunt it down first base and just bulldoze Wilcox, and he did it. Look, check the video out. It's awesome. CA, Dodgers versus Astros, Orioles, Yankees World Series, meaning which of the three goes up against the evil empire? I still got the Orioles. I Oh, you're calling the. It's funny. The Eve umpire was the Yankees for decades, even in the '90s. I have a Dodgers Orioles World Series still. I picked that in the preseason, and I'll stick with it for now. Maybe when I talk with Drew in 2 weeks, it'll be less. I think if a pitcher stays in 3 innings, the pitch clock should increase by 10-second intervals. If you need a pitch clock at all, it just enforce rules that are already in book. Kenny commented on this. He umpired for a long time. There are rules in the book that allow umpires to keep the game moving along, but the Major League Baseball wasn't okay with that. They would prefer oh God. They would prefer to just, I lost track of where I was going here. They would prefer to take the onus off the umpires, right? Because that's their job. They have one job. That's the police. Make sure the game is run in an orderly fashion and balls and strikes are called and outs are called and keep the game moving along. Because there are rules saying when you get the ball, you're supposed to throw it back almost right away. You're not supposed to wander around. You're not supposed to wander around home plate. You're supposed to stay in the box. Didn't need to put in new rules. Just enforce the other ones. Kaepernick has almost the same completion percentage career-wise as almost identical to Joey Harrington, who stunk, by the way. One is considered a bust. There you go. And people still try to call the fluke Super Bowl year his average. Jeremy, thank you, because I very rarely, when I make this argument, I very rarely get people that back me up. They all feel like, and I don't know, you haven't said this outright. I said if he could play, he'd be in the league based on all the, and I think you're agreeing with me based on maybe what you said about the guys who shot themselves. The league's full of punks and criminals and, murderers and rapists and drug addicts and serial gun violation issues. Never mind. Can't play. If he could play, he'd be in the league. Simple. Some good enforcer seasons. Dave Schultz, 20 goals. Dave Schultz was one of the great enforcers. Bob Probert was another one. Probert. So Chris Simon. Tragically, I believe, isn't Chris Simon no longer with us, sadly, this year? Am I missing that? Stars for Keith Engle. Thank you so much. The star. Danny, you flatter me and make me blush. My pale complexion does not allow me to hide blushing. Thank you so much, though. Always greatly appreciated. In case I didn't mention it, I suggest Summer read Tom Holland's Dominion. He's finishing up his next, perhaps the best author attempting to bridge secularism with other faiths. Interesting. I'm always interested in, I'm not a religious person, but I am interested in religion, which I guess is a weird dynamic, but I'm very spiritual. Very. There's a lot of things, there are pieces from every religion, from Catholicism to Buddhism to Hinduism to whatever you want to talk about. I espouse parts of all of those things. I'm not an fan of organized religions of any kind. You always say if you're willing to pay, then you're worth it. I do say that. I didn't say you were worth it. I never said worth it. Never. I didn't say you would earn that money. I said you deserve to get whatever somebody's willing to pay you. I don't think I've used the word worth it. I will say there are times, well, for instance, with the Yankees, right? I mean, you have to take payroll into consideration. But again, I never have said, guys, Do I think it's stupid when somebody gets their money? Sure, but I'm not gonna put it on the player. Somebody's willing to give it to you, I'm gonna take it. Again, there are nuances to everything, right? And I don't think I used the word worth it. I said you deserve it because somebody was willing to give it to you. I don't begrudge them. Maybe the words don't fit what I'm trying to really get across. If I'm a player, I'm not saying no if somebody's willing to overpay me. Now, worth it, it's always a different conversation, right? There are a lot of guys who aren't worth the contracts that they have. The massage molester being one of them. Now, and it is stupid to give somebody contracts that changes the entire pay structure of a league. But again, that's not the player's fault. That's the league's fault. That's the team's fault, I should say. My comments were about players taking the money. Nobody's ever going to say, no, I'm not worth that. So again, Earl Morrall had been the greatest backup quarterback ever. Took 2 teams to the Super Bowl, never really started in one. No, he started the Super Bowl against the Jets. He came in relief against the Cowboys the year Chuck Howley. They won on a Jim O'Brien field goal, and Chuck Howley was the late Chuck Howley, who we mentioned his passing this morning. Won the MVP for the losing team. So he started that game, and Unitas came in. No, I'm sorry. He came in relief of Unitas that day, and he didn't play in the in Miami's Super Bowl win, obviously. He started one Super Bowl, though. He started the biggest Super Bowl, the most important Super Bowl in history, the one the Jets won. In fact, some of his performance in that game is what has led conspiracy theorists to think the game was thrown. Very famous picture of Jimmy Orr standing all alone, basically in the end zone or at the 5-yard line, and Morrall throwing, never seeing him. I mean, there wasn't anybody within 20 yards of him. But again, not evidence of the game being thrown. Not that alone. Well, actually, he finally left. He would have probably been fired at some point. But that was a problem that took care of itself. If you're watching, I apologize, but that's a fact of the matter. Phillies versus the Orioles in the World Series, Danny says. Not picking your own Dodgers. Interesting. I'm not picking my Yankees either. The pitch clock is fine. Anthony, good morning. Late arrival today. They do have timestamps, so I'm like 5 minutes behind on the comments. That's not terrible. Pitch clock is fine. It's the batters asking for time on every pitch. Well, you can only call timeout once, can't you? There's also limits on the timeouts. I'm not a fan of the pitch clock. Again, you should never lose a game on a pitch clock violation, ever. Right? And I also think it's affecting the injuries that we're seeing to some of the best pitchers in baseball, because they're having to change their approach to make sure they don't end up with pitch clock violations. There's arguments to be made either way, Anthony. As a sped the game up, sure. And I'm happy that, I can watch an entire Yankee game and still get, still watch something else and go to bed at a decent hour, and I'd have to stay up till midnight. Do you agree on, you do agree on Kaepernick. If he was good, he wouldn't have failed 17 tryouts. I agree 100%. Again, those murderers, rapists, drug players don't hurt those big boys, but embarrassing them on national TV does. Goodbye, Colin. Not sure. Again, those murderers, rapists, drug players don't hurt those big boys, but embarrassing them on national TV does. Goodbye, Colin. I'm not sure exactly where we are there, Kenny, but that's okay. I no way think Cap. I don't think Cap was a great quarterback either. I'm just saying that listen, Joe Cap found a way to win a bunch of games. Played with a great defense with the Vikings. By the way, he played with the Patriots too, and 70, I want to say. He was terrible, absolutely terrible. Of course, the team was terrible as well. But playing on a really good Vikings team, I mean, he was a serviceable quarterback. But 30 owners don't think Kurt Warner was worth taking. Something changed. Mistakes are made for sure. Listen, a lot of guys, and maybe look at Kurt Warner. Maybe wasn't good enough when the draft time came around, and his traveling around from team to team because he was in a bunch of different camps and going to the Arena League and whatnot. It's a pretty good movie, I think, on Netflix. Maybe it might have been a theatrical release. I don't know. And I don't know the name of it, but it's really the Kurt Warner story. It was really pretty good, and I thought fairly well done. So it was very interesting to watch. Gone at Noble Lake, Scots hold their throw in advance 8-7 to play England. So the Scots will play England. The Kingdom reunited. Fantasy update. Thanks for that, Drew. Happy about other week matchups are going both 14-4. Rough week. I've had a rough year. I've had a rough 2 years, man. Last year I made a run. I can't see any way. And here it is, going to be July 4th in a week. I can't see any way I can make a run. Last year I made a run, and I think if we had one more week, I'd have been in the playoffs. Even one more day. But I don't see any way I'm making that run this year. Drew always agreed with me on CAC. No, thank you, Drew. Did you, again, when I say nobody, again, I don't mean to give, what's the word I always use with my people? Don't talk in, crap. There we go. Mind skip again. But a lot of the shows I go on, too, where these topics have come up in the past that, you know. Yeah, we talked about this earlier, Anthony. Jamarcus Russell, huge draft bust. A high school, he was a volunteer coach. They didn't give him a job. They aren't paying him. $74,000 that was donated by somebody who wrote a check for $74,000, gave it for the school, gave it to Jamarcus Russell. It ends up in his credit union. He writes a check right away for $55,000 for himself. Now, you can do what you want. Jamarcus Russell's a loser. Gotta go. Glad to you could make up for lost time this morning. We'll definitely like to schedule our mid-season following up on our picks, provided we can find a way for me not to have a voice of God this time. You know, it's funny. Drew, I don't know if you're still here, but I had the same problem with Jim Sundberg at the start of our interview, and then it kind of went away. I was playing with the with the different settings like I do with you, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Again, the only way really to eliminate some of that is to really get high tech like I do, and I'm not telling anybody to invest a bunch of money. Unless you're going to do this a lot. So, yeah, definitely. I'm going to say we should plan on the 12th on doing that. Kurt Warner, America's Underdog. Thank you, Anthony. It was a really good movie, I thought. The star of it was a guy who plays Shazam, and he played Chuck. If you ever watched the movie, the show Chuck, which my wife turned me on to, and we rewatched the whole thing a few year back. It was a great show, I thought. So anyway, I think that's enough for today, guys. Great show. Sorry about the problems in the beginning, as all user error. Drew's got a great point, and I think I brought it up myself as well, that, as I go along, I like to get into my open remarks and then go to the good mornings, but maybe I should have the comments open so that I can see them and somebody saying, "Hey, I can't hear you." Because I only have so much voice that I can do. Set your fantasy lineup. The Mark Mancini Pirates on at 8:30 here. Really? I don't think I have any Pirates. Who are they playing? That's the Roku game, right? I do have Mitch Keller, actually. Is he pitching today? But in any event, yeah, the Roku morning shows are getting started, it appears. Anyway, guys, sorry for the problems. Thanks for hanging in there with me. It was a great show as always. You guys make this show work. One more time, check out the Jimmy Fund event here on July 13th out in Lakewood, Massachusetts, if I said that right again. And check my Facebook page for more details on some of the stuff that they're doing. Great stuff, guys. Thanks for being with me. And we'll see you again. No college football huddle on hiatus until August. No one-on-one and no Major League Baseball update likely next Friday because of the holiday weekend. And we'll be back next Sunday with Stream of Consciousness. You guys have been great. See you later. Have a great day. See you guys. Bye-bye.